GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I was going to do some short-term analysis on Bitcoin this morning, but since there is nothing really happening whatsoever on Bitcoin right now, obviously we are still in this sideways consolidation, but we've gone really, really flat over the last day. There's no real update from yesterday's stream. So just to remind you of what that was, we're looking for potentially a push up to 102,000 over the next week. I think this will be an area that is resistant in the short term for Bitcoin. And what we might then see is another retest of the current lows, the lows coming in just above 92,000 at the moment. Potentially some consolidation close to those lows, some sort of bear track being formed before another push higher later on in January. So really a couple of weeks away from seeing the next serious push up in Bitcoin, in my opinion. Up until that point, it's just a case of being a little bit defensive. Yes, we could see moves lower into the 80s. I think maybe an 80 handle on Bitcoin will then induce a fair bit of panic into the market, and the fear will probably come in. I'm sure if Bitcoin did come down to say 85, 86,000, lots of people would then start saying, look, it's all over. That's the cycle high. Or what we might see is people then starting to say, we're going down to 70,000. We're looking to close the CME futures gap down there. So potentially this is one scenario that can really sort of flush out the optimism in the market. And then we might see a stronger sort of push higher when all the weak hands are out. I really think that's what's happening. This is just a transfer from the impatient to the patient, which is really what these financial markets like to do. So that's really Bitcoin in the short term. On the longer term, if I just come onto a clean chart, we can see here, this is something that I only really picked up the other day, and I don't actually think we got full history on that chart. So let's use this one. If we actually connect do we have it? Yeah, we do have it actually on this chart. So if we connect the high back in 2017 with the sort of highs of 2021, using a bit of a line of best fit on those highs, then we can see we've actually come in to what is a really, really crucial level here. We can bring this in slightly and say, look, this is a trend line that essentially is connecting all of our cycle highs from 2017, 2021, and now 2024. So it's a little bit early to say whether this is actually going to result in the market just rolling over and putting the cycle high in here. I still think we've probably come up, test this, and get above this, given where we are in the cycle, given the fact that Bitcoin is so strong, especially with Trump coming into office under a month away now. It's hard to see this trend line not eventually breaking. However, it is something to be mindful of. And if we just kind of go back to this chart as well, obviously this is where we had sort of the 4 hour trend in. So we'd drawn this sort of 4 hour channel, or this obviously daily channel of price action once we broke above 100,000. And we can see obviously we then got some confluence between that trend line and this trend line. And given that confidence, potentially if I'd spotted that earlier, maybe this would have been an area that would have been obvious for rejection. Obviously, it's great to say this sort of thing in hindsight. Of course, we might have just kept on going. We did have some higher targets coming in around 113,000. We've got one now at around 118,000 as well, which catches this price action. Obviously, if Bitcoin were to come down lower, say around 86,000, that Fibonacci extension target would then move higher. So obviously a lot of this depends on what the price of Bitcoin does over the next few weeks. But currently that's coming in at 118,000. It's also worth bearing in mind that over time, this trend line is going to move higher. So obviously, if we just extrapolate this trend line out and we look at where this trend line will be in November, obviously we're going to be coming in around about 120,000. So do we consolidate? Do we chop? Do we test a bit lower and then sort of make our way up sort of later next year to retest, getting above this all-time high and potentially pushing up to 120,000? I think that is a fairly pessimistic outlook for Bitcoin. I'm not expecting that to happen, but obviously we need to entertain what is the bearish take, what is the bullish take, assign probabilities to those outcomes, and then obviously position around those as traders. That's what we have to do. I mean, this is a game of probabilities. So yes, it was just interesting. It was just interesting to see that, yeah, okay, we do have some confidence around this area, and I'm not necessarily expecting this to be a cycle high for Bitcoin, not at all. I do still think that potentially over the next couple of weeks we come a little bit lower. We put in a bit of a bear trap. We come down. We test this level at 91,500, this ascending trend line, and then potentially base higher. But that's going to be a key area for us to get above. And certainly, if we do come down lower into early January and then start to revert higher and come back up and sort of spike through this high, then potentially we might find some resistance here again. Potentially, we might need to sort of build some high consolidation, a bit like we did when we were around 100,000, which was massive psychological resistance. We really had to build, 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 and then we managed to push through it after what was a good sort of 2 weeks, really sort of fighting that level. So potentially we come up in late January, we start to build some consolidation below this level, and then we pop on higher. So just trying to sort of entertain different possibilities here with Bitcoin. Funnily enough, if we do actually put this trend line on this chart, then connecting sort of the high here, then we can see obviously we've tagged it. If we then actually take the absolute sort of highest point from the 2021 bull run, which is actually the earlier of the two highs, that's where the trend line would touch. Funnily enough, that does then take us to around the top of this arrow, just out of pure coincidence. And obviously, that coincides with being pretty close to this 113,000. Right now, we've got the 1.618 at 118,000, the extension from the recent price action over the last month. So there are levels starting to emerge above the current all-time high that could be problem areas for us. All I will say is the longer time we spend below this all-time high, obviously the more the price sort of coils up, and then it becomes like a spring, and you get that sort of explosion, that sort of rapid move in price when this level does break from this. Obviously, people putting liquidity, people putting their shorts, stop losses just above this high. Obviously, that creates then forced buying, and you see this almost like this cascade of liquidation higher, which obviously you've got people buying the breakout, you've got people that are then having to force buy Bitcoin as well, and you get a bigger move. And obviously, as time goes on, more and more and more liquidity starts to build. So potentially, if we do sort of come down and shop around and it takes us another month or even another 2 months for us to break this high, potentially we can get through these levels a lot quicker. And I really think when we take this high out, we will then be targeting higher levels into the 120,000s, into the 130,000s, probably in the first half of next year. So that's still what I'm thinking. But I mean, one potential scenario is Bitcoin does come up and it finds a bit of resistance here at this ascending trend line. And then what we start to see is we start to see altcoins like Ethereum, Solana outperform as Bitcoin consolidates before Bitcoin then takes over again. So we just need to be sort of mindful of what's going on. Obviously, I'm going to be here with you to break down exactly what is happening in the price and what I'm expecting. As I've been saying, I'm still expecting Ethereum to outperform in Q1. So potentially we do see some bullish consolidation in Bitcoin. We see it get back to either its all-time highs or making new all-time highs, consolidating, and then we see Ethereum really make a run for it. And just looking at Ethereum again, it's not too much to talk about on the short-term price action, but longer term, I'm definitely expecting Ethereum to get up to some of these higher targets, potentially as high as 7,200, 7,351. We've got this 4,236 fib. We've got the 4.618 up at around 7,700. So I'm thinking this probably does happen. A lot of people are calling for a 10K Ethereum this cycle. I think that's possible as well, but obviously I'm just trying to be a little bit cautious with some of these targets and just trying to rein in my optimism slightly. Obviously, we need to get above the previous cycle all-time high first at 4,870. That's going to be a really, really key level for Ethereum to take out. And obviously, in the shorter term, we need to get back above 4,100. That has been our current highs from this year. So I do think Ethereum will make its run to new cycle highs early next quarter, probably to retest its previous all-time highs. And then the question will be whether Ethereum could take out its previous all-time highs in the early part of next year. I think it's Ethereum's moment to, like I say, historically, it's going into its strongest quarter. So this is really Ethereum's make or break moment. And just looking at Solana as well, then Solana holding up okay for now. It's the only major that's currently positive today. But obviously, everything's practically flat. So that doesn't really mean a lot. But yeah, I'm expecting a big year for Solana. And I'm still thinking Solana probably comes up and hit some much higher targets. If we actually just draw on a Fibonacci retracement from previous bull market high to bear market low, we can see we've got resistance coming in around 420, obviously a bit of a meme there. And then we've got the next major fib resistance, the 2.618 coming in at 687. So I'm thinking that we can definitely see a 2x on Ethereum, on Solana from here up to this 420 level. If we get through that, I think it's easily possible for Solana to hit 680 this cycle. I know a lot of people are talking about Solana going to 1,000. I think we just need to take it as it comes. Really, we need to see Solana pick up in the early part of next year, along with Ethereum in Q1, and make its way up to this 420 area. I would say probably by March or April next year, pre-summer. If we see that, then potentially we see a bit of a summer cool off and we see some extension in the later part next year towards the end of the bull market. If we go into a complete frenzy, FOMO, complete euphoric moment, and especially if we get some more, I think, sort of certainty around the Solana ETF. I believe applications have been filed. So certainly if we get a Solana ETF approval, close to a Solana ETF approval, I can see Solana potentially coming up to the 680, 690 zone as a bull market target. Pepe then also still above the previous all-time high from earlier on in the year. So that's encouraging to see Pepe still digging on in here. If we try to look at some targets for Pepe, obviously it's a little bit hard. But if we do take just the previous swing high to swing low on the Fibonacci extensions, we can see I really think Pepe is going to do some big things right now. We're trading at around about sort of just shy of 19s on here. I do think Pepe from here can definitely do a 5x as a multiple. So let's round this up to 20 and say, look, we can probably lose a zero from here and get up to the, it would basically be, if this is 1,800, basically I'm saying we could get to 10,000 on here. So that would take us up to this level around here for Pepe. So sort of zoomed out, that would be up here somewhere. So can we get up to the 4.618 at 7,860? I definitely think that's possible for Pepe. So obviously these levels will be resistance on the way up, but I really think Pepe is, in terms of the bull market, can still absolutely do a 5x from here, more than a 5x. I think the market cap for Pepe is just under 10 billion currently. So that would put Pepe at a 50 billion market cap. Something like this 7,860 would be about 40 billion market cap. I'm pretty sure Shiba Inu did that last cycle. I can definitely see Pepe the biggest meme of this cycle hitting those sorts of numbers. So um, yeah, that's it really. Obviously, there's no change on traditional markets. They are all still closed. Obviously, Sunday today, they'll be open and trading again tomorrow. So nothing really to update on those. Hopefully, just going back to Bitcoin then, obviously in the short term, still remaining sideways, still broadly following the path that we've put in a few days back, and no real change, expecting more consolidation and chop going into January, and likely some higher prices going into next year, and potentially making our way up initially to this trend line here around about 115,000. We've got this longer term Fibonacci at just under 114,000. So potentially some confluence there. Um, and that's it really. I'm gonna wrap it up there. Hopefully you've enjoyed me sort of taking a little bit of a step back and looking at some of the longer term charts, some of the weekly charts. Obviously we've discussed slightly longer term targets on Bitcoin, or should we say more medium term targets on Bitcoin. I'm going to do a video soon where I talk about where I think the cycle top for Bitcoin can be. Obviously, I think it's a bit higher than some of the levels I've shared today, but I'm talking about looking now to the next quarter, Q1, Q2 of next year. I think Bitcoin can get its way definitely up to around about 115,000. Ethereum, I'm thinking, can go all the way as high as maybe 7,000. Solana 420, Pepe putting on another sort of 4x, potentially 5x over the next 3 to 6 months. So, like I say, I'll do a video at some point sharing some longer term sort of cycle predictions, but certainly in the medium term, these are the types of targets I'm looking for these crypto to get to, or majors to get to, and obviously the rest of the market. That should all spill into the other altcoins that I'm sure will really start to outperform, especially when Ethereum makes that break of 4,000, 4,100. That's what we really need to see to send the altcoins. So I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, we get a bit more volatility coming into these markets next week. And have a great day wherever you are. Enjoy the rest of your holidays if you still got them. For many of you, today could be the last day. So hope you've had a great time, and I'll speak to you all on the next one. GM, GM.